Welcome back to the Joy Dunk Club. We kind of switched dials on you, so if you were looking for us on the ACV channel, you should switch on over to AA Rising's channel. But again, if you're on the ACV channel, you probably have no idea that I just said that, so sorry. Anyway, it's nice to be back. I want to give a shout out to my boy Red for holding it down last week or 2 weeks ago. But now I'm back, and we're ready to go. We have a lot to talk about tonight. In the worlds of sports and Asian Americans. So let me go ahead and bring on the rest of the crew, and we'll get to talking. First off is our dat-winning grumpy fan, or whatever, I think that's his name, the Mad Fan, the Diary of a Mad Fan, based up in
Mad
Boston.
Fan's right, Keith.
So what's up, Greg Kim? Are you still angry? Are you still mad?
We'll get there, but yeah, that's one way of putting it. Yeah.
You have a lot to be mad about.
Yeah.
Anyway, but thanks for being back on the show, and we got a lot to talk about.
Always fun.
Next up is my girl out in D.C. By way of Chicago. She is back on the show once again, repping the Shy, repping the Bulls, and also ready to talk about all the crazy things that's been going down in the NBA and other various sports leagues. What's up, Joyce Yin?
So I just have to say, happy birthday, Joakim Noah. What up? Woo!
Yes.
Yeah.
Congrats to the Bulls tonight.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Over 100 points. Not in overtime. What up? Very good day.
Without Jimmy Butler, right? He didn't play tonight, did he?
I think he's still out with that, like, bruised rib thing. So, exactly. What up?
What's going on? I thought the Bulls were supposed to be tanking for the rest of the season. What's going on?
Oh, you and I both know Tibbs is not going to do any of that bullshit. Come on, please.
Yeah. So, but anyway, thanks for being back on the show, Joyce. Our final panelist is we've actually pulled the wizard from behind the curtain, and he's joining us on this side of the camera for the first time. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. A. Risings himself. It's Nelson Wong.
Hey, what's up?
How's it feel to be on this side of the camera?
Oh no, man, it's like the Wizard of Oz.
Pay no attention to the man behind the camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's nice to see your face on the show, and thank you for letting us loot your space on AA Rising since we, for some reason, couldn't be on the Asian CineVision page.
Yeah, it was a mad dash and big scramble.
But anyway, hopefully you'll be able to find this show. Those of you who watch it later will be able to find it on AA Risings and ACV, but we'll see. Either way, it doesn't matter. Hope you're watching live.
We'll work something out.
That's all that matters. Anyway, so a lot of things have gone down in the last 2 weeks. It was All-Star Weekend when you guys were on, and there wasn't a lot to talk about in the NBA. The big story when you guys were doing the show 2 weeks ago was the Michael Sam story. And for those of you who might have missed that news story, he's the college football player who came out and who's a top draft pick who was raring to be the first openly gay player in the NFL. The NBA, however, went ahead and got a leg up on the NFL and signed the Brooklyn Nets went up and signed Jason Collins, who famously came out last year. So he got some minutes in the Nets game the other night. So I have a couple questions about that. First of all, do you think it's the Michael Sam effect? Do you think Michael Prokhorov was like, "Hey, let's be the historic franchise and let's sign Jason Collins"? Greg, what do you think? I mean, you're not a Nets fan, you're a Knicks fan, but do you think it was a smart move by Brooklyn?
I don't think it was a publicity move. I think, they were in the market for a big man. There was some talk that they try to sign, Big Baby Davis, who Orlando recently parted ways with. So, I don't know. I like to think that it was a basketball move. It was mainly a basketball move. I'm sure the publicity played some small part in it, but they signed him to get in there and play reserve big man minutes, which is what Brooklyn needs right now. So, especially with Lopez out. So, I think it was a basketball move, which is the right reason to sign a guy like that.
Right, exactly. And some of the controversy ever since Collins came out last spring, and I don't know if it was really a controversy, because I think the one thing about the NBA is that the NBA of all the sports leagues is probably the most progressive. But there was talk about, ever since he came out, he never played again, until he was signed on this 10-day contract this season. And some people, there were rumblings about, well, is it because he came out? Is it because even though the league kind of embraced him, no one really wanted him on the team. But the other argument is that he was a marginal player at best even before he came out. So, Joyce, do you think that he'll make a difference on the team? Jimmy Fallon on the Tonight Show last night made a joke in his monologue about how now that he's the first openly gay player on the Nets, maybe he'll be the first openly good player on the Nets, and I thought that was a funny joke. But anyway.
Oh,
Will he make a difference? I mean, like I said, Jason Collins has been a marginal player even prior to his coming out last year.
I feel like
he was on the Wizards last year, for God's sake.
Oh yeah, for like 6 games. Oh, we'll always have Collins. I mean, I think it's all about setting expectations. Right, so I think to what Greg was saying, like the Nets are in need of a big man, and Jason, I think, brings some of that old school big man mentality to the table. So in that sense, I think he'll bring maybe some of that. What do people say? That the veteran leadership, that old school knowledge to the team. I think as long as people just don't expect him to like make the Nets,
Good.
I think that's what she was getting
And
into.
Jason Collins, the first openly gay NBA player, blah, blah. About how... Oh, all right, I freeze.
No, you're back. We got you.
Sorry. Am I here? Are we cool?
Yes, you're there. You're here.
Yeah.
Do you hear us?
Okay. I think there's a cynical part of me that wonders, like, yeah, I want to think that. Yeah. That this was largely a basketball move, but at the same time, I can't help but think, like, I was reading, I think, on Bleacher Report that on the day of Jason Collins' signing, that they, like, the Nets, I don't know if they sold out, but they sold a shit ton of Collins' jerseys. So part of me is like, look, Mikhail Prokhorov is not a putz, right? I think he knows what he's doing, and yes, this may be largely a basketball move, but this will also draw more attention to his team, whether that's a good or bad thing.
I don't know if they're selling them stock or if people are just like customizing Brooklyn Nets jerseys. I'm not sure about that.
No. I think I saw it. Let's see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually, I don't know if it was Bleacher Report or not, but I saw a similar story that said that the NBA, not just Brooklyn, the NBA is because of demand, printing like a bunch of number 98 jerseys just because of the demand. And then like the irony of all of this is that he's on a 10-day contract. So by the time they print and ship these jerseys, there's a good possibility he's not even going to be on the team anymore. So. The other thing that about Prokhorov is that he's Russian, and we're just coming off the Sochi Olympics, and there was this whole, Russia's treatment towards gays in their country, and I wonder how much of it is political and how much of it is Prokhorov saying, big finger to his homeland about embracing an openly gay athlete. So I don't know. I mean, it's all speculation at this point. I'm glad the NBA is the league because the NBA is my favorite sports league. It is the league that has openly embraced Jason Collins, and like you said, are judging him based on his basketball and not just trying to make publicity stunts out of it. One of the other interesting aspects of the Jason Collins story, though, and what makes that story relevant to Joy Dunk Club, is the fact that in the story about his being signed, Jeremy Lin was one of the players that was quoted in that piece about how he was actually okay with Jason Collins. And the reason this is a big story, for those of you who may not know, and I don't know how you wouldn't know if you know anything about Jeremy Lin, he is a devout, super conservative Christian. And there's always been like talk. He's never really made a lot of political statements. That's what's made him the anti-Tim Tebow. But this is the first kind of sense of what type of person Jeremy Lin is, I guess, that he was actually embracing of Jason Collins. So Nelson, since you're out in the Bay, I don't know how steeped you are in the Chinese Christian community out in the Bay, but do you think that was a big step for Jeremy Lin to despite his fundamental Christian beliefs, that he was actually okay with because it's we're in a period of time where like there's a lot of tension between like conservative Christians and the gay community. Just look at what's going on in Arizona. So what do you think about Jeremy Lin's acceptance of Jason Collins as a person?
Well,
Is it a good thing?
Yeah, first of all, I thought it was a little odd that they would choose Jeremy Lin to make a statement about it. And I think they probably did that in hopes that maybe there was going to be some controversy over it. But I think Jeremy Lin's been coached pretty well to take the high road and not really say anything that might cause some controversy, even though he may believe otherwise. I mean, I don't know for a fact that
right.
he believes otherwise, but he likes he's a ambassador for the NBA. He really knows how to keep a low profile and stay out of the controversy. But I do think.
But you think he's being savvy about it? Maybe that.
I think he's being savvy about it. But why would they ask him? I mean, of all the people, I think there was probably some idea that maybe they could get some story out of it outside of the whole, Jeremy Lin being Asian American.
Right.
But
I think part of it may be that. I mean, a lot of NBA players are openly devout, right?
Right.
But I think Jeremy is probably one of the most, at least openly religious players in the league. What do you think, Greg? I mean, do you think, as much as Jeremy Lin is an Asian American basketball player, he's also a symbol for Christian basketball players too, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's more easily associated with the Asian American thing. But I think anyone who's paying any attention to him knows that he's one of the bigger Christian players in the league.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's the first. I mean, it's obviously not the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
When you think of Jeremy.
Well, right, and that's when all those Tim Tebow comparisons were coming from too. A lot of it, I think, was that wasn't just like this fluke, but it was the religiosity of their off the field, off the court kind of talk too. Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting time to be in the NBA because now that we're talking about Jeremy Lin, we are now 5 days past the trade deadline, and I think for a good portion of the year, many of us on the panel probably thought tonight might be when we discussed Houston trading their reserve point guard to another team, and in fact they did trade a reserve point guard. It just happened to be Aaron Brooks and not Jeremy Lin. So the question to you guys is. Are we breathing a sigh of relief? Are we kind of like mournful that he didn't get traded? Did any of you want him to get traded away from Houston? How about you, Joyce? Are you sad or okay with him staying on the Rockets, or were you hoping that he would end up in a Bulls jersey at the trade deadline?
I would be happy. Well, okay, no, that would be like I can't hate on DJ obviously, and so I'm not even gonna touch that, but. Can I be neutral about the trade? Because I feel like can I be neutral? Right? Because it's not like I think this is Houston's way of saying we're going to stand pat. This is the team we're going into in the playoffs, and considering they're third in the Western Conference right now, I'm like, all right, you're all doing pretty good, and I'm happy for Jeremy. That's great. That's awesome, but I really don't have any strong feelings either way. It's a straight up trade. Jordan Hamilton. Can make some shots from the three-point land. That's great. I don't think he's going to really take a lot of minutes away from Jeremy. You know what I mean?
Was it more shocking to you that Omer is still there?
Yes, actually. For all that noise that we heard in the offseason and then in December that, Omer's going to get traded, for him to still be here and it's February is very strange to me. So I guess he's going to have to suck it up and be the backup C. I don't, but there are worse places for him to be, right? He's on a playoff contending team, so suck it up.
How about you, Nelson? With all of the talk, there weren't any blockbuster trades. I guess maybe Danny Granger leaving Indiana was pretty big, but I don't recall any mind-blowing trades at the deadline. Do you think with the Rockets roster as it is, that they decided, even though they had these contracts to worry about, and they had all the playing time issues that they just figured it's best to stay pat and try to go as far in the playoffs as we can.
I think so. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious that one of the point guards needed to be traded, and Aaron Brooks wasn't getting a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were just holding out for a good deal too. They just didn't want to get rid of Ashik and Lin for nothing either. I mean, that's why there was that rumor about the whole Rondo trade,
Right.
which I mean that definitely would have been an upgrade for them, but.
Right.
I just.
Well, I mean, and Rondo, he can be an MVP caliber player. So yeah, there was it was probably a rumor, but there were rumblings and maybe it was just like, desperate Knicks fans on my Facebook feed. But there were rumblings that Jeremy may go back to New York at the trade deadline, and it turns out that maybe those rumors should have been true because it looks like New York may be without a point guard for the foreseeable future. I see Greg shaking his head. If we look back on the summer of 2012 and James Dolan's, wheeling and dealing, or non-wheeling and dealing, as it were, do you think New York really, really regrets letting Jeremy Lin go now? If they haven't already.
Is that a question to be?
That's you. That's a softball.
I mean, I just remember, when the day it happened, the day that it was announced that they weren't going to re-sign, a bunch of I have a lot of arguments with my friends on Facebook about, mainly the Knicks, basketball in general, but mainly the Knicks. And so many people were like, he's just a flash in the pan. He's not going to turn out to be anything. Raymond Felton's going to be better anyway. He's better for this team. And look where we are now. I mean, I think the greatest irony of this whole thing, personality clashes and whatever, aside, or desire for being the centerpiece and fame aside, I think Jeremy, is perhaps, an ideal kind of point guard for Melo, which is just and the Knicks, they're just they're suffering at the point guard position. So this whole thing, especially with the recent developments over Ray Felton, it's just a total disaster. I mean,
yeah. And we should explain why Ray Felton is not going to be the point guard.
We haven't touched on that.
We don't know, but what?
I mean, so he's being accused. Well, basically based on reports, his ex-wife brought in a firearm that he was keeping in his home that was he was illegally in possession of, and he's facing he's definitely facing felony charges. I think it's just third degree now.
Well, because it's I don't think it's a felony. It's illegal in New York to own a gun.
But I think it is a felony level offense.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So the charge is
and I also think that his wife accused him of threatening her with it too, right?
I think the report said he waved it aggressively, but he never pointed the gun at her. But I mean, this is if you remember Plaxico Burress, this is the same kind of charge he went to jail for when he shot himself in the leg. But, this time it's his Raymond Felton's estranged wife, who actually filed for a divorce last week, basically brought this loaded gun into the police, and then he turned himself in last night after the Knicks lost to the Mavericks, which is also
Well, I mean, here's the funny thing, and Joyce, I'll bring you in as the resident Knicks hater along with me. It's I don't know. I find it tremendously entertaining to see the kind of disarray that New York is in. It's safe to say that they're probably worse today than they were maybe 5 or 6 years ago when they were terrible.
I would disagree with you.
You would disagree?
I do not disagree with you. I love those shitty Knicks teams. They were underdogs, and I just love the hell out of them.
But don't you think, Joyce? Don't you think this team is actually worse than it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago?
That is quite a lofty statement. I don't know if I could. Well, because I don't know if there's and I think Greg will disagree with me, but I just don't feel like there's anyone on the team that I really severely dislike. Not even Melo, right? They're all just kind of sad at this point.
If they weren't losing, Joyce, would they be as sad as you think they are?
They could be sadder. Well, no, okay, they're pretty sad. Maybe they are. Maybe they are worse. I don't know. No, sorry, guys. I don't know. Nelson, what do you think? Like,
They're pretty
terrible.
sad. They are. They're
I mean,
pretty
as
sad.
much as I like trash Melo and how I don't think the Knicks can win with him, he is playing like so out of his mind right now. He's dropping like 40 points and like all this shit, and like his teammates and his coach in particular are failing him, and it's just like I wouldn't have blamed him before if he left New York during free agency, but I certainly wouldn't blame him now. Like I don't know.
And I do think Melo was robbed of the MVP. He probably should have deserved the MVP.
I mean, Kyrie did. I could see why they gave it to Kyrie, and I think it was partially a fan vote thing. I'm not sure exactly how the logistics work, but I think he was a legit contender for MVP. He was my pregame prediction for MVP.
Yeah, he was. I think you did say that. Yeah. Well, the other thing that I wanted before we're running out of time, but the other thing I did want to touch on that you guys. You know, in the 2 weeks since the last show, we've had a little thing called the Olympics happen, and I mentioned a little bit earlier when I talked about Sochi, but the Winter Olympics just concluded in Sochi, Russia. You know, skiing and bobsledding and all the fun stuff like that. But really, the only thing people care about at the Olympics is women's figure skating, and our resident Mad fan had a really interesting essay about the athleticism of figure skating, because I think in a male-dominated sports writing world, sometimes people overlook figure skating, and I think it also doesn't help that figure skating has a very opaque and weird point system. Like, it's hard to tell when someone's winning or losing. So, Greg, do you want to, before we get into like what makes you mad about the Olympics, do you want to just kind of give a really short kind of defense of figure skating? That wasn't that maybe like sum up what you wrote about a couple weeks ago.
Well, I think particularly when there is controversy or when these scandals come out from or when people highlight the fact that figure skating is judged, a lot of people are like, oh, like figure skating's not a sport anyway, it's like a performance art or whatever. But I think the key thing here is that, regardless of the sport, and I also cited this article from the London Olympics, even though it's, figure skating or badminton or table tennis or all like archery, all these different sports, regardless of how familiar you are with them or how accustomed you are with them as like a sport that you play growing up or that your country is good at, these are Olympic athletes who have like trained their asses off, and they're like, these elite physical specimens that are like competing at the absolute highest level. So, I don't think anyone can say, any Olympic event is not a sport, no matter like how strange it is to you or how like, I guess, little the judging system means to you, or even if there's like a match fixing sort of thing, that kind of thing happens in soccer a bunch of times, and no one's saying that soccer. Most people aren't saying that soccer isn't a sport. So.
Well, and then so the thing about the figure skating this year, that and Greg kind of touched on like the scandal about it. Yoona Kim, who was the reigning gold medalist in the Winter Olympics, who had been actually off for a couple years, who made her triumphant return this year, skated, I think as well as anyone could have hoped or imagined, and yet she ended up with the silver medal. There was controversy over the fact that the Russian, and it wasn't even the Russian skater who was favored to win, because there was a younger skater who was like a favorite to win, and she fell, so she didn't even medal. And so this one skater who no one even heard of came out, and she won the gold by and it was like a blowout in skating terms. It was like a 5-point win, which is a pretty big deal. So Joyce, basically the Korean internet exploded. The Korean media in general exploded when that happened. And do you think, and I don't know how familiar you are with the controversy or if you watched the Olympics, but do you think, so for example, the change.org, or maybe it's even the White House petition thing, like it was like the biggest petition in the history of petitions that we should do something about this. So I mean, can you explain the passion that Koreans have for Unikim? Do you have any explanation for that? Because I'm asking you because I'm sure Greg does. But.
I know. I was gonna say. I was like, I feel like Greg is the more appropriate person to answer this question. But what I can tell you from my very intellectual observations from listening to Korean pop music is that the Korean netizens are insane. Like, when they find something or someone that they can get behind and that they can feel connected to and they can root for, like, they are full force, right? And so I think with Yuna Kim or Kim Yuna or whatever, however you want to pronounce it, I think I've heard a lot of different things. I think what's resonated with me is that, one, I feel like in a lot of ways fits this very stereotypical feminine ideal for Koreans, right? She's very pale. She's got the very cute eye smile going on. She is slender and thin. She's just very traditionally beautiful in that respect. I think she also works her ass off, right? Has a huge work ethic. In a lot of ways, she also seems very like pure and innocent, which I think a lot of, again, from my intellectual Korean pop observations, I think a lot of South Koreans love, right? And so I think they see her as South Korea's kind of representative, or emblematic of South Korean identity, and as also, yeah, exactly, and as kind of like the little sister that they can rally behind. I feel like South Korea is really big on finding like little sisters or little sister types. Read into that.
Well, but that's an interesting point though, because at the same time,
that's my 2 cents. I want to know. I really want. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think that it's interesting that you say that, though, because at the same time, her nickname is the Queen. So it's kind of, I don't know how, it's a little bit of a kind of a cognitive dissonance that she's like the little girl kind of ideal, but she's also Queen Yuna. And I think that I read somewhere that she's also like, you know, Korean pop stars tend to be overly plastic surgeried, and that Kim Yuna actually isn't, and that's one of the appeals of her. So I'm going to come to you in a second, Nelson, but I see like Greg chomping at the bit. So, Greg,
it's fine. If you want to go to Nelson first, I'm totally down to wait.
No. I will let you weigh in on Kim Yuna. But 2 things though, like so. One, I think you were really upset the night she lost the gold medal because let's admit it, she lost the gold medal. She didn't win the silver, she lost the gold. But the same question I posed to Joyce, what is it about Queen Yuna that really engenders so much passion in her fan base? Is it because of the controversial nature of her loss? Like if she was beaten fair and square, would we still see this outpouring of grief?
You know, I think it's a really huge. It's a combination of a lot of things. Like, I don't want to get too much into like social cultural history. And I don't like talking generations, especially in generalizations, especially from like my like non-Korean speaking Korean American upbringing. But you know, because of Korea's history and you know all the Japan stuff and its status as like you know a developing economy and stuff like that, you know, it's really a big deal when individual Koreans like make it on the global stage in a big way. Like you kind of saw how like, you know, with Gangnam Style, everyone was all hyped up about Psy, or like elite athletes like Park Ji-sung, who was like playing for Manchester United, like in the English Premier League, and you know making waves, you know, in the international soccer world. I mean, these sort of individuals, I sort of see them like in their own like tier of like the pantheon of like Korean celebrity because you know they made it on a global scale, and Kim Yuna like is right at the top of that, right at the top of that structure because you know figure skate, you know, Korea has always been successful in like short track, right, or in the Summer Olympics like archery is like our jam, right? These are sports that the like Korean like athletic bodies just like they identified them as, you know, these are sports that we can compete in, and they just train the hell out of them at the national training centers. But you know, Kim Yuna, like, she wasn't part of that system, right? She was a figure skater all on her own, and she's like legitimately one of the best ever to grace the sport. So because of this, she's a great source of national pride, and I think Joyce touched on this already. Like, when I felt like she was robbed, this is what I told to people. Like when she didn't get the gold medal, I legitimately felt like my own sister was like a victim of a crime, and the culprit was just free to walk away and get away with it. It's like that's legitimately how I feel, and I'm not going to get into why I think there was what the violations were, but that was the feeling.
Oh yeah, no, there's totally, like I was saying earlier about like my Facebook feed. Maybe it's just I happen to have a lot of Kim Yuna fans on my Facebook feed too. But like,
I was probably responsible for 50% of your Facebook feed.
Yeah, that's probably true too. But like photo after photo, it's like Zapruder film kind of level of detail of conspiracy. Like there are people like with arrows and circles and pointing at like this judge is over here and look at him doing this and that. And, like it's really like, I mean, and I admire the passion, but wow.
I mean, I think she's legitimately a daughter of the nation. So it's akin to like if some bully like slapped your daughter in the playground, like you don't want to see that fucker getting away with it, right? You're like, you want justice.
Well, that's actually I like that analogy because that's a good segue to the next thing and then the last thing I'll probably talk about tonight, and that's staying on this topic of the Olympics, and the notion of bullying and the passion of people on the internet. During the closing ceremonies, one of the biggest deals I think for the people here on this panel and Asian Americans in sports in general was that the flag bearer for the U.S. team at the closing ceremonies was the U.S. women's hockey player Julie Chu. She was given the honor to carry the flag at the closing ceremonies, and when that was shown on NBC, cue the racist trolls on Twitter, and as is always the case whenever a non-white person does anything patriotic or whatever, the racist trolls come out of the woodwork and then say all these things about Pearl Harbor and Japs and all this kind of stuff. So Nelson, I mean, why is it that I talk about the passion of the Korean fans who love Kim Yuna so much, but what is it about crazy racist people on Twitter that need to express their crazy racism whenever a non-white person does anything?
Well, you know what? I believe they have the platform to say what they think now. These people have always thought the same way. Now it's just they have a platform that they can speak out in public and get the attention. And personally, I hadn't even known about all of the racist comments. It doesn't surprise me, but I just kind of ignore that kind of stuff these days. But I mean, Julie Chu is deserving of carrying the flag. She's been in the last 3 Olympics, Winter Olympics.
And Julie Chu was, I mean, of all the talk about, we were talking about all this Olympic controversy a few months ago before the Olympics. The major Asian Olympic controversy was the fact that Mirai Nagasu didn't make the team. She was the Japanese American U.S. women's figure skater who won bronze at the U.S. Nationals, but didn't make the team in favor of Ashley Wagner, and who didn't even medal, and who was during the games, it turned out was like a meme fest of all the entitled snarky faces she was making during the games. But Julie Chu has been the face of the Winter Olympics, even like you said, for the last few years. And I mean, I've seen I can't count how many commercials. I mean, they're great commercials that I see, like Julie Chu and her mom selling like paper towels on TV. And I mean, it's just a great kind of, as an Asian American in media, to see such a natural like mother-daughter kind of thing. Despite the fact that she's this like world champion Olympian, that it's an Asian American woman like Julie Chu, and that she was given the honor to carry the flag. It's like, I mean, why can't people celebrate these things? Why do we have to? And why do we feed them too? Because you hadn't seen it, but as necessary as I think like websites like Public Shaming are to kind of call attention to the racist trolls, do you feel like it's no longer public shaming that like they do this so that they can make those Tumblr websites?
Yeah, I think so. They're doing it to get attention.
Right, because it's like I understand why public shaming is necessary, but it almost gets to the point where it's not even shaming anymore. It's the public that people care about, not the shaming.
Right. It is. I agree completely.
And that's the show, folks. Nelson agrees with me, and that's all I wanted. So, but any last words about Are we glad the Olympics are over and we can have our primetime television back? Is anyone happy about that, or is it just?
Yes.
Because I have to be honest, I was really tired of the Olympics on my TV all the time.
I didn't actually watch much of the Olympics this time around. It just didn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're going to end it there. I want to thank my panel of guests tonight. I want to thank Nelson for coming on this side of the screen for the first time and still holding it down, making sure the show is working. Thanks for doing it, Nelson. Catch Nelson next week. He'll be hosting live the Nerds and Colors Hard Knock Life Google Hangout. So actually, this was a test run for Nelson. Make sure.
Yeah. I'll clean up back here for next week.
Yeah, I was like, where's the Jeremy Lin jersey in the back?
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, thanks for being on the show. I want to thank Joyce and DC. Thank you for weighing in, even though your internet is shitty.
Thank you.
That's in the 5-second delay. And of course, many thanks to the mad fan Greg Kim. One last thing. Today is the 50th anniversary of Ali Liston. That's why I'm wearing this shirt tonight. I am the greatest. So I'm going to leave you with this. Peace out, everybody. Hey, that's not what I was supposed to leave you with.
Wait.
That's Jeremy Lin. That's embarrassing. I meant to do this, and this would have been a lot more cool. Peace out, everybody.
There you go.
Good night. See you next time.